That was Mo at the Brooklyn Bowl in Brooklyn, New York on February 22nd, 2019. That just finished up. I just finished up my Seder. Maybe some of you out there finished out yours as well. But far more importantly, we have Rob and Chuck from Mo with us right here, right now. How are the two of you this evening?
How you doing?
Great.
Okay, I'm disappearing into my background, but otherwise I'm doing just fine. So we're going to take some questions from folks, but I am curious, and and a little bit later we're going to jump into the Capitol Theater show from February of 2018, the dramatic and compelling return of Mo after you had to take a little bit of time off. But I'm curious, going back to the Cap, do you have any memories of that particular show, February of this past year? Is there anything that jumps out at you either about that show, or a Brooklyn Bowl, or playing the bowl in general? Rob?
I don't.
Rob, do you remember, was that the show that they had the cameras on stage and Al actually grabbed one of the cameras and kind of stuck it in your face while you were playing a solo or something? He kind of attacked you with the camera. It looked really cool. Like over all the bowling lanes, you could see like all the TVs. All the TVs were showing you kind of dueling with Al. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I remember that.
No, I don't know. I'm not trying to be difficult. It's I literally don't have any memory of that.
Do you remember just conceptually? I'll jump to. Well, I'm with you. We have you here, Rob. Do you remember conceptually just the idea of Brooklyn Bowl before you were there, as to thinking what it would be like, whether it would work, all that sort of stuff before you actually were there?
Yeah, but I mean, like, when I heard that it was going to be a venue bowling alley, I had a whole different thing in my head of what it was going to be. I mean, I've been to bowling alleys. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be like such a hipster kind of place. And so cool. I thought it was just going to be like, okay, you guys set up here in the corner while, these guys are bowling. And I mean, that's all I can that's all I can imagine in my head. And that's all I can envision. So, I mean, but I guess leave it up to Peter to do something really cool with it and make it into a really hip place to hang out.
I'm curious, Chuck, do you have any, do you remember your thought process before you guys set foot in there the first time?
Why the hell would we want to play in a bowling alley? We'd had some bad experiences with that before. No, actually, we had heard it was pretty cool. So going into it, we were kind of looking forward to it. That actually, the thing that really stood out the first time we were there was the food. We ordered food, and the fried chicken was outstanding.
It's quite famous. In fact,
yeah.
It's been highlighted on the Food Network.
Oh, good.
I've been to plenty of events there where that's served as catering, and people get all excited and come to the event in part so they can have the fried chicken.
Yeah, man.
Pizza's pretty good too, for the record. I enjoy that.
What is?
The French bread pizza.
Ah.
So I recommend that next time you happen to be there. I tell you what, the question before we get to a question, let's stick with you, Chuck. I mean, can you talk a little bit? So far, everyone so far has given us a little hint of what the forthcoming album is going to be like. What would you like to? What are you willing to say about it?
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, it's we worked on it in October, and it just got mixed maybe about a month ago, right? Something like that. So, and we've been talking about kind of the order of the songs. We had more than an actual album's worth of material, so it's kind of whittled down, and now it's going to get mastered. But looking forward to hearing it all mastered and completely done. It's just like our shows. It's a little bit wide ranging. Like there are some different styles because all of us have contributed different strange parts and songs to building it. So it's kind of broad. It doesn't all sound the same, which is good and bad, maybe depending on what you're looking for. But I think it's pretty interesting to have the variety. I don't know. It all seems like it works to me because I've heard it for a while, but I don't know. I guess it all just sounds like us, so that's the unifying factor.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty excited about all the songs.
Well, speaking of variety, here's a question that came in. It's a little bit different. It's Rob, why are you in a grocery store?
Well, I'm waiting for toilet paper to come in, and I heard there was a shipment, and I didn't want to blow off. I didn't want to blow off this, Q&A that we're doing, but we're in really bad straits here with toilet paper, and I don't know. I figured I'd multitask.
Fair enough. Nice job, sir. How about this? We'll go back to Chuck. This is from Brock B. What are your opinions of the differences between your studio albums versus your techniques for live performances? You want to talk about that?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? That was hard to hear.
Sure. What are your opinions of the differences between your studio albums versus your techniques for live performances?
Some of them are not that different, actually. But what are my opinions? I don't know.
I mean, I guess
I don't know what my opinions are.
How do you approach it? Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, just wondering, how do you approach
Then who would know what your opinions are, Chuck?
I don't even know what my opinions are. I have no idea. I don't know. I guess I don't know exactly what they mean. I guess they mean like how you look at the process and how you look at presenting it. I guess.
Maybe what do you like doing more?
Oh, okay, that's a different question. That's a good question. Huh?
That's a tough one too. I think I like playing live better, but I enjoy studio albums a little bit more than live recordings. Obviously, like bands like a band like the Dead, it's interesting to hear live recordings, especially from certain eras it's more exciting to hear that sometimes than it is some of the studio albums for me. But then like Working Man's Dead is one of my favorite albums. So for us, I think that I like the opportunity to take some of our songs that are kind of blown out and longer and high energy and kind of condensing them in the studio. So that's kind of exciting to do as well. I think on this recording, we didn't cut things down super short, but we did some trimming just to make everything a little bit more concise. But I think the difference between the studio and live is just stretching out some of the solos and obviously some of the segues and in between songs. So that's the only real difference. You're still trying to get the best quality that you can possibly get out of it.
So sort of same question to you, Rob, but how about like when you have a brand spanking new song that you're either going to debut live or debut in the work out for the first time in the studio setting? Is the process different? Is the mindset different? How is the how's the approach? My understanding is there are some new songs on the album that you haven't played yet, for instance. So compare how you might have approached them versus how you would approach them if you had debuted them as a new song live.
When you debut a new song live, you always have the luxury of getting it better the next time, you know? So, and you, if my mind is thinking I'm going to debut, or if I'm working on a new song and I'm not planning to put it on an album we're doing, and we're gonna put it in a show, we're gonna debut it in a show. There's always there's always plenty of more shows and plenty more time to work on the song, to listen to it and to revisit it and edit and come up with different parts. And it becomes, a work in progress at all times, which, is, it's, that's all fine and well. And what happens is you kind of get a little more audience input on a live, on something, some material that, like, if I wrote a song on my material, if it's just, constantly being worked on, and we have live shows and we have audience participation or interaction, I guess I should say, that's going to add to how I perceive the song, and how I how the end product of the song is going to come out. If I'm going to debut something that I write in a studio setting, then that thing, there's a lot more on the line for the final product. And it has a lot more pressure to come up with something good. And honestly, it's a lot more fun to do it that way, because you really get your real, you can be more of an artist, I think, in that regard. If you take, I take it pretty seriously, and I would much rather do an entire album of stuff that no one's ever heard, and just keep working it out before it ever, before we ever release it, And sometimes that doesn't mean it's done and then we record it. Sometimes we record it and we be like, listen, and be like, okay, let's revisit a couple things here, and let's do this here. And there's a lot that can go on in overdubbing, and a lot that can go on in mixing, and that can just really change the song. And, when we come out with the final product, it's a lot more satisfying, I think. But not to say that recording stuff that people have heard before isn't satisfying either, but it's just a different sort of process, I guess.
I'm curious, one more on this for Chuck. In terms of songs that have evolved live, can you just talk about one sort of the other side of it? Can you talk about one song that you think has really taken on a new life, or really sort of surprised you over the course of its history?
One song that we did a Halloween show years ago, and we had people come up with ideas for what the theme of the show would be, and we were going to write music for it. And we ended up writing, it was the electric lemonade test. And we wrote some kind of like psychedelic 60s and 70s, influenced songs for that show. And we ended up keeping a couple of them, and they, at first it seemed like they might be kind of, if not one and done, like shortly gone. And but a couple of them stuck around. Suck a Lemon stuck around for a while. I still like that song. But what's the Silver Sun has become like one of the like a good set closer, big time epic song that we throw into sets now. And it was written, based on the suggestion for the theme for a Halloween show, but now we still play it regularly. And it's turned into this giant jam vehicle, and it has a couple of different parts. It's a pretty it's big time, man. It's completely big time.
Nice.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it.
I think that comes across. So we're heading towards the Capitol Theater show on February 2nd, 2018. That you've taken some time off. Rob was recovering. It's a very dramatic and compelling show. But I think some people might not know that that Moe first played at the Cap about 22 years before that, before Peter Shapiro reopened the venue. I mean, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your initial, your memories of playing the Cap the first time around. Rob?
I don't remember it being quite as beautiful as it was, as it is now. And like, I think with all the projection and all the great things that have been added to it, it's turned into quite a venue. Chuck was reminding me before that we played with MMW for that show, but the thing that I remember was we met our future booking agent that night, and we had been talking to a bunch of other agents, and he came down to that show, and his name unfortunately he passed away, but his name was Chip Hooper, and he was just, we knew it was a great match right from the beginning. It was also Al's bachelor party. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I remember Coulter was there, a couple other people were there.
Jesus, that's right. We had a bachelor party the same night. Oh my God, I forgot about that. So we met our booking agent and had, and then I don't know, I could be getting this wrong. I might be getting this mixed up with something else, but yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of personal history there now that I think about it. A lot of weird stuff.
By the way, of course, Chip Hooper, who did pass, my one small plug, right? Check out, people want to check out, learn more about Chip. Long May They Run podcast, episode 3, I think, talks about Chip. Chip was just an amazing individual, and we talk a little bit about him there. And it's just an extraordinary man who had a ton of talents, inspired people with his photography, among many other things. Okay, speaking of sort of momentous moments at the Cap, the show that we're about to get to was a night in which Moe had taken some time off because you were recovering, and then you returned to the stage. You actually sang lead on the first song. So let's start with Chuck. Chuck, what was it like for you heading back into that big show that we're about to see? After some time off, Rob's on the mend. Set it up for all of us.
I was actually pretty nervous about that. There was it could have been just kind of like a normal low-key show, but it was definitely not. Everybody, every friend and family that we have in the universe seemed to be there and want to be a part of it, and that's amazing. But there's also like a lot of pressure, and you want to just make sure everyone's comfortable and happy, and we want to make sure that the band is comfortable, and the whole thing was I don't know, there was just a lot of excitement building up to going back there, and that day was just it felt kind of like there was like a rocket getting launched or something. Like we were all just gearing up for that moment to walk out on stage. Maybe it was because we had taken that, because it had been such a long break for us. We usually don't take breaks that are that long without playing live. So there was a lot of energy around that. Everybody was really looking forward to it. It was pretty awesome to be back.
I mean, in terms of the crowd intensity, the thing I would compare it to is when you played that show in Boston at the Orpheum after 9/11, not so long after, and then you played New York City. I will never, ever, ever forget that. I mean, I just think there was an intensity. Well, I mean, maybe it's somewhat analogous to what'll happen when music starts again live, whenever that is.
Yeah.
I just remember being back that night in Boston, and everything was electric, similar to this particular night at the Cap in February of 2018 that we'll jump into momentarily. I'm curious, Rob, so from your perspective, what was all that like for you?
Jesus. It was pretty emotional. I saw so many, there was a lot, I saw a lot of people crying and stuff. And I just felt so incredibly good. I mean, I couldn't have been, I don't know if I've ever felt that like good ever in my life. I don't even know if the word happy is the right word for it. It was just the amount of love that was like directed towards me during my entire treatment, sort of just hit its culmination, I guess, at that show. And it was freaking intense. It was really great. Like, I don't think I felt so confident that I couldn't do anything wrong that night, that it was, I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't, but I felt great about everything, so it didn't matter if I screwed up or not. It was amazing. And, getting in there and seeing like the crew had made shirts, and, Peter had a freaking banner made. And I was just like, Jesus, this is the most intense thing. And, like, it's, some of the guys in the band are like, we had all this time off, and, I had all this time away. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I haven't had any fucking time off. I've been gone from like, feeling like near death or being close to death. And then, just clawing my way back to being able to actually do my job. It was pretty intense. And by the end of the night, I felt it for sure. Like it wasn't like easy for me in any way. So, and I learned that night that this is why I can only do this show, or, what it was just that weekend, because by the end of the weekend, it took me a couple weeks to recover from that. If I remember correctly, and we had done a couple of these shows. So every time I get back on stage, it was like everything I had to be able to get through it. And then I'd be basically dead for 2 weeks after.
Well, with that in mind, I'm psyched that we're gonna. It was, again, the intensity in the room, certainly on the stage. It was there. It was palpable. So we're gonna.
I remember that Boston show that you're talking about, and that was. I agree with you. There was. I remember because my parents used to live outside of Boston, not half hour away or so, if I have it right, and I was staying with them during that time. And then I went out to I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts or something with my dad the next, after that first show, and we're getting some coffee, and a cop came up to me, and he was like, "Thank you for what you did." Like he knew who I was. He was at the show, and my dad's like, "Why'd that cop come up to you?" And I'm like, "He was at the show, and he was a fan, and he was saying thank you for everything that you did." And I was blown away by that,
It was like I said, it was intense as it will be when Moe comes back and plays again. I really do feel that. By the way, I noticed there's a little bit of pasta on the shelf over your left shoulder. So I'm glad that the is still available for people who need that. All right. Having said all that, let's jump into the first set of this show, Moe's return at the Capitol Theater on February 2nd, 2018. We're going to listen to a set, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk to all 5 members of the band. It'll be all.
She knows nothing at all about life. And now she knows everything about living. Oh, she knows nothing at all about life. And now she
Thanks, folks. I guess you're not going to get rid of me that easy. Shit. Jesus, I don't know. Wow. It was, thank you so much, guys. It was the overwhelming amount of love and support that I got is really made it very easy for me to do what I did. So I credit everybody here and elsewhere. Thank you so much. There she stands leaning at the ocean shore, with my arms like a matador, like a matador. She's an East Coast mama now, I know that for sure. Going down for the third time, going down for the third. Down, 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 down. 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 Rip up all my limbs, poke out both my eyes, allow my swollen tongue way up in the sky, and the siren song sweetly sucks me down to the ocean blue. Find my way back, rip up all my limbs, poke out both my eyes, allow my swollen tongue way up in the sky, and the siren song will sweetly suck me down to the ocean blue. I find my way back to you. Find my way back to you. Find my way back to you. Find my way back. Find my way. Find my way back to you.
See my welcome is where I've been set. Smoke shoot Joshua about the state room. Now I'm feeling good as gold, feeling cheapest. I think it's time for mine. You say you don't care about all the things that you've been doing without. I'm feeling good as gold, feeling cheapest. I think it's time for mine. Playboy, I'm skipping bucks.
Every time I hear that tune, every time I cry, every time I let sleep, every time it's new, every time it's what I'm leaving, every time it's you. Every time I love you, every time I think what could have been, every time I love you, every time I sing this song, every time I play, every time I think it's wrong, every time I pray, every time I think like you, I think about you. Every time I think about it, I think about it, I think about you. Every time I think like you, I think about you. Every time I think about it, I think about it, I think about you.
Rob. About you every time I think about Bob. Every time I think about Rob. Every time I think about Rob. Every time I think about Rob, think about you. Every time I think about Rob, think about you. Every time I think about Rob, think about you. Every time I think about Rob, think about Al, think about you. Every time I think about Al, think about Al, think about you. Every time I think about you, I think about you. Every time I think about Al, think about Al, think about you. Every time I think about you, I think about you. Every time I think about Al, think about him, think about you. Every time I think about you, I think about you. Every time I think about Al, think about him, think about you.
Give it up for Alan on guest guitar. Well done. Sorry to put you on the spot. Just felt like we were having a moment.
That's not what we practiced.
Stunt Alan.